Hello everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures. I'm High Lord Tamberlane, and this here is the Corvus Cabal box for Games Workshop's new WarCry game. And they are quite the interesting warband. So we're all very bird themed. We have weird bloody necks and lots of feathers and pointy things to poke and claw people with. So let's stop talking, let's start seeing what's inside as I rip the box to shreds. So these are the newer trade releases. They have a nice cardboard tray, I guess that's where all the extra money is going. A variety of base sizes. You have 3 of these half frames, if I can actually remove it from the box. And then all the appropriate rules. And if you haven't seen WarCry, they have these very language agnostic cards that have all the important information, and then we have all of the actual rules there in your language of choice. So yeah, I'm gonna have to have my kids translate that for me, but obviously. Anyway, let us get to the good stuff. So as we said, we have 3 frames. I like the big sharpened blade. That's gonna be a fun one. But our leader here with these crazy wings, I have a model that really reminds me of that from Rising Sun, so we'll have to get him out and compare him as well. So without further ado, let's get those clippers and let's start building. Oh, I guess the boss is actually going to be on a 40mm base. Kind of cool. I like big bases. Looks like we're going to start with the Shadow Piercer, and the Shadow Piercer is a pretty cool model, and then we're going to do the Shrike Talon. I don't know why it reminded me of Shrike, something about the wings and the feet. So we'll build them first. Let's get that going. So here are all the parts for the Shadow Piercer. Now let me warn you, these are super tiny, delicate parts on the hand and the bird. I am super worried this bird is going to be breaking off real fast. You can already see there's a bit of tension on that part where it's been bent. So please, please, please be careful getting that off. Otherwise, I mean, the rest of the body looks like it's going to be reasonably easy to build and put together. Of course, it would help if I was putting the parts on in the right direction. So these are these more modern parts where you have everything kind of connecting in weird positions. I got to figure that out, but basically it's going to go like that. We also have the back part, the leg, the previously shown off hand with the feathers, and then finally the beaky face. I don't think the model has a face, yeah, as of yet. You actually really need to attach the mask in there. All right, let's get her built. She's going to go, well, I don't know if it's a he or a she, but it's going on a 28mm base. So let's do that. And that is the Shadow Piercer done. And I gotta say, this is one crazy delicate model. It's not even a matter of if, it's when things start to break. So you can see here that that bird is just ever so delicately attached to the skull in our Shadow Piercer's hand there. I'm probably going to have to glue it down somewhere else once it breaks off. It just really worries me. But it's a really cool looking, very dynamic, very visual, very kind of actually busy kit. There's a lot going on here, but I really like what I see. So I feel like there should be some more space between the bird and the totem on the back, but because looking at the artwork in the picture, maybe it's just the perspective that I have. I mean, it's on straight. I've got the body attached correctly, I think, as far as I can tell. So, I don't know. I'll have to go check online, maybe. Anyway, next up is the Shrike Talon, the model that I am most eagerly awaiting the building of. So, let's get started on that one. So, here are all of the parts for the Shrike Talon. We have the wings, part of the head, the body, skull mask, other leg, part of the cowl, and then you actually have the talons that go on the feet, the actual feet, and not the stilts there. Actually, no, I think it does go on the stilts, never mind. Anyway, I don't know for sure if these two parts are actually different. This is part 12, this is part 13, so I just left it that way because that's how it's labeled in the directions, and I don't want to mix things up. But let me warn you, there are some super delicate parts. Check out these feathers. These feathers weren't as bad as the other one, I think. Where we have like individual little... I just worry about this stuff. This is some crazy delicate parts on these kits. You've got like these strings and the finger blades and just everything in general. So I am hoping beyond hope that this is not a problem to get put together, and this model gets the big 40mm base as well. So fingers crossed I can put it together without breaking it. Here we go. And our Shrike Talon is done, and it does live up to my hopes. It's kind of weird how the backpack well, it is technically a backpack. His wing thing got all put together. I actually just glued the two halves and then attached it to the body and then put the cowl. They had it doing one and then the other, which I didn't think made sense. But it's a good size figure. I mean, just to give you an indication. I haven't glued it to the base yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to right now or not, but you can see here, I mean, obviously it's supposed to be quite large, and it's definitely... Man, I seriously worry about how I'm going to be transporting these guys. They're just so many little bits, and once this dries a bit better, there's still a little bit of wet glue. I got to clean it up. I did not do the best job of cutting it out, but I am quite happy with this one. This is going to be probably my favorite model of the warband, actually these two. But I guess we probably should build the rest, so let's move on to the next group. Who is next? I want to say the Spire Stalkers. Spire Stalkers it is. Here are our two Spire Stalkers. They're both just straight builds. We don't have any variations on them. You basically have a pretty simple construction of 4 parts for one, with the head being a single part, and then a back, torso, and head for the other. So pretty simple, and they're both on the 28mm bases. The rest of the guys are going to be the Cabalists, and I believe they're all on 25s. Let's get these two built, and then we'll move on to the Cabalists. Here's the Spire Stalkers, all finished. Went ahead and glued this one to the base. They had a weird kind of over-under putting the parts on that was a bit confusing, but eventually everything seemed to click and worked out okay. Again, lots of really delicate parts there, so be careful trying to put them together. But man, do I really like these guys with their collars of crazy bird feathers, and there's just lots going on here. This model I didn't actually glue to the base yet. It seemed like it was going to be kind of a challenge getting underneath everything and in all those weird positions. So, also, I'm not a huge fan of when we have our tactical rocks completely overhanging the base, but that's how she's supposed to be. So, nevertheless, I do like her weapons there. On to the Cabalists, and we got to start making some choices at that point. Here's our first two Cabalists, and our first significant choice, and really only choice we're going to have to make for our Corvus Cabal warband. Basically, our first option is going to be, do you want to arm him with a spear, or do you want to arm him with a regular weapon? Now, the spear has its own warband card, so they are a little bit different, but it's not a huge difference. Let's see. The spear obviously is going to have a better range and more dice, whereas the regular one is less dice. I'm sorry, less range and more chance for damage output there. So not a huge difference. I'm going to build that one with the spear. The more interesting options are this model right here. So you still have the regular sickle. They have access to their dart still, but this one has either a familiar or a spear. Now the familiar, this is the only model that is able to run with a familiar, and the familiar basically can stop other models from disengaging in combat as one of its options if you roll enough dice off of their, war card charts. So I'm going to go ahead and build it with the familiar just because they're one of the very few, the only other model in the faction that has it is our, oh god, what's this guy called? The Shadow Piercer? Yeah. So they're the only ones that have access to having the familiars running around, haranguing the other enemy and keeping them from leaving combat. So I'm going to go ahead and build that. Let's get these guys put together. And we have all of our Cabalists all assembled. So obviously we have our familiar one right here. We have 2 with spears, and then 2 of the dual blade wielding ones. A couple of things I also wanted to point out. Our friends right here both had options instead of their secondary weapon, in this case his hand-to-hand weapon. He does carry the knife no matter what, and the knife in this model's hand. They have an option for their raven darts, and I made an absolute mess of trying to get these attached, and it did not want to work. You can see the glue all over my fingers. It just did not want to work. So finally I just said screw it, and she got a knife, he got his blade, and we're going to call them done. So my final thoughts on the entire warband now that I've got them all assembled here, and we'll just zoom it out in a sec, that everybody is built and put together. Where is our Shadow Piercer? That is a cool model. And naturally we can't forget the Shrike. So this honestly is probably the first of the warbands that I have given some serious thought to actually picking up a second box. Of all of the current groups, I think the fact that they can really mess with people with those birds, and the Shrike itself is not a leader unit, so at least as far as I could tell, I can double check its card, but if I'm reading it correctly, which I'm about 85% sure that I am, it's not a leader, which means you can run multiples of it, which means why the heck would I not want to run that? Because it's friggin' awesome. Yep, there is no leader rune mark there, so you're good to go if you want to run multiples. The only thing is, yeah, it's got a lot of life. Yeah, it's got a decent defense. The 5, I don't know if there's anything with a 5 yet that I've seen. I'm sure there is, or there will be at some point. Most warriors either have a 4 or 3 defense. So it can take a beating, but I mean, outside of it getting ganged up on, I could see that being a problem. But on the other hand, it's also doing a minimum 2 damage every turn. It has its special ability that doesn't anybody else in the warband actually have access to. Its swooping attack, which lets it make a bonus move. And if it moves more than a certain amount, I think, and if it moves vertically, so you really want to have a very tall scenery and terrain, it actually gets to make a bonus attack in addition to that. So I'm thinking running multiples of those, getting some extra familiars, and really just kind of screwing around with my opponents. So being my son for the most part on a regular basis, he might not appreciate that, but I'm certainly looking forward to it. And honestly, they're really, really nice models. I love the poses. I love what's going on with all their gear. I love the detail in the artwork and the paint jobs with their bloody, you know, kind of necklines. I'm guessing it's supposed to recreate either a crow or a raven plumage, but I mean, they're just really cool looking models. So I'm slightly tempted to build another set of them. And that's saying something, considering I haven't done that with any of the other warbands yet. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention is you do get a couple of extra quivers of raven darts, which everybody in the warband does have access to. We had mentioned we had the 2 Cabalists that were modeled with them that I could not get put together. They had a weird kind of that over-under, you know, kind of zoom and snag the piece in underneath another one, but then have it above another piece. It just very puzzle-like, and it just didn't want to cooperate after I'd put glue on it. So that was my only big detractor, other than the fact that some of the pieces, having to cut them out, was a bit of a challenge because they were so delicate, our Shadow Piercer in particular there. So, biggest drawback, I guess, there is it's going to take some time and patience to put them together correctly, but otherwise I think they're going to be a really fabulous looking group once they're on the table, and I am eagerly looking forward to getting them painted probably as soon as I stop filming. With that said, I'm going to stop, and it's time to go slap some paint on these and hopefully get them on the table soon. This has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching. Want to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit some button, because push A to make something awesome happen, right? See you all later. Bye-bye.